Well, welcome back to our discussions on the use of Project Libre. Before we get into the material today, which is moving toward tracking a project and talking about it and showing you how it works inside a project management tool, one of the things to note is that there are differences in various project management software. Libre is free. When I say free, is anything really free? And you often ask that question, but in this case, it is open source, and the licensing is such that there usually is no charge for Project Libre. You can find it on the internet and download it from their site. It is a nonprofit organization that develops it. Open source software is, for those who don't know, is usually developed by volunteers. They like programming, they like doing things for the technology community, and so they develop programs that, because of the way they're developed, there's no charge for them. There are some projects, open source projects or free software, that actually you want to be careful of because it could be infected with a virus or something like that. Project Libre has never had a known situation involving a security breach that I'm aware of, and the software runs pretty well. It runs, as we noted in the first session or first recording, that it runs on all three of the major platforms: Microsoft, Windows, the Apple iOS, and when I say OS, the Apple desktop environment, or it'll run on an Apple MacBook or MacBook Pro, and then also Linux or Linux, whichever way you pronounce it. Now, with that said, there are other tools out there, and I'm not going to get into all the different variances because I'm going to use one that is really, in many ways, the premier project management tool, and that would be Microsoft's Project. Microsoft Project has been around for a long time, 30 years or more. It originally was developed by somebody else, but Microsoft came along and bought the product. Now, I remember using it for projects as far back as the mid-90s, early 90s, for projects for a consulting firm that did work for the Department of Defense. So it's been around, and it was called Microsoft Project at the time. So it's been around for a long time. It is mature. It is more mature than most project management software. As an example, one of the things that Project Libre and the team that develops this software has been working on, and I as far as I know, it's still not available, is recurring tasks. And the perfect example of recurring tasks that is in many projects, there are weekly management meetings, there are weekly team meetings, and they're scheduled for every single week or every other week or whatever, but they would be recurring. They would happen over and over again. Often, a good example would be that there's a project team meeting where the leadership of the project gets together with the project manager and goes over where everybody's at. And often those will be an hour, maybe an hour and a half meetings. And they may go, let's say the project is a whole 6 months long, and in that 6 months, every single week you will have one of those meetings, whether it happens on a given day. Let's say it was scheduled for a Wednesday, but it might be changed occasionally to another day. Might or might not be important to recognize in the software, the project management software, but it certainly would be nice to be able to show that it takes place each week and assign resources to it so you know what the cost of the meeting is. So let's say that there were 5 teams working on a project along with the project manager. So the project manager and the 5 team leads would meet each week for, let's say, an hour. And so that's going to cost some money. You consider something as simple as, let's say, $50 an hour for each one. You take 5 teams times the project management, that's $300 a week. And in a month, that's going to cost you $1,200. And over 6 months, that's going to cost you $7,200. So you want to know that it's there. And in some cases, it also is, as an example, if this project that you're doing is actually under the auspices of a different organization, good example would be Department of Defense contracts, where the Department of Defense is paying a company to develop something for them. And I've been through this numerous times. And the government wants to know what you're doing. They want to know how much it's going to cost. Maybe they had a budget of $1 million for a project. And so when the budget was developed, it was developed with the anticipation of being paid $1 million. And so, and I use the term, you kind of plug the numbers to make sure that you're going to come out with $1 million. And let's say that you had to cut a few things down a little bit to stay within the $1 million budget. Well, there's somewhere in there, the government wants to know that the project's being managed. And so if you have these team meetings every week, not only do they understand the cost of those meetings, but they also know that those meetings are taking place. So it's very important to have recurring tasks. Not all projects require them, but some do. Now, the issue here is that Project Libre doesn't do that. The only way, let's say that the project was 6 months long. That's not a terribly long project. And indeed, when you read the material on projects in books, they will typically say that a project is no more than a certain number of months or a year long, sometimes more than a year. And if a project turns into some 5-year project, it probably wouldn't fall under the guidance of what Project Management Institute, PMI, calls a project. That's a longer term event, and a company can call it whatever they want. There's no requirement that they call it something that project management adheres to. But the bottom line is that if it's 5 years long, maybe it's more like some department, because it's a long time to do what they're doing. But if it's 6 months, a year long, and then it ends, it has a definite end date, then PMI terms that, defines it as a project. So let's say it's 6 months long. We could even make it easier and say it's 3 months long. And so if you wanted to have a recurring project, a recurring meeting that you want to show, you could go in and create a task you'd create several tasks. So you would have a task that you would put under a summary, and you would put those in every single week for an hour long. So for fun here, I'm going to go ahead and call it the project meetings. And we won't worry too much about the naming of this. Often it would get a little bit more sophisticated than this. But for right now, there you go, project meetings. And I'm going to say that, we'll say that this is only going to have a few weeks. We'll have meetings and I'll put them in certain spots. So now, you would have project, let's say it's meeting 1. And you would say it's going to take place on, let's say that this starts on the 12th. The first meeting will be on the 16th, and it will be 1 hour long. If you put these things in wrong, they get really frustrated. There we go. I spelled it wrong. This is I tell you, if I could just type I'd be dangerous. Okay. And I'm still having troubles typing this. Hour. Hello. There we go. 0.12 days. It's an hour long, and you can see it. You can see it right where I'm moving my cursor at the moment. You can see the time. All right. Now, we may have several of these. So I want to see if I can. Come on now, copy. One of the problems is I'm using a Mac here. Let me see if I can do it this way. It's probably not going to let me. All right, so I don't care. Let me do it this way. So meeting 2. And we'll do it a week later. So let's bring up the calendar. So we'll do it on the 23rd for, let's get this right this time, 1 hour. Here we go. Meeting number, and I'm just going to do a couple of them, and then you'll see what I'm talking about. Meeting 3, and we'll do it. Got to wait for it to update. There we go. Meeting 3, and we'll do it on the 30th, and we'll say it is 1 hour long. There we go. All right, so we have 3 of them. And it'll update in a second. There it goes. So now, and just actually, you know what? To make this a little bit more, let's say just to make it so it's a little bit bigger, let me make this 3 hours so it's a little bit more obvious to you. There we go. A little bit, well, is it going to be? Yeah, well, it really doesn't make any difference. Okay, never mind. I thought maybe it might make some difference if I made it. I'd have to make it a day long to make it worth my while. Okay, let me just change this to 1.25. All right, we're back to an hour. All right, now watch what happens here, and let's assume that there's more underneath here, but for the purpose of what we're trying to do, what you do is you take each of these and we link them. And then, I'm sorry, we don't need to link them. That's right, we don't need to link them. This one, and this one, and this, I'm sorry. I got to grab all 3 of them here. It's not working the way I want here. Here we go. Oh, no. Let's change that back. All right, let's just make it easy here. We'll indent. Sometimes you can grab them all because it's a little slow coming up here because we're doing several things here to make this happen so we can record it. I will let it build. All right, there it is. Now notice we have a project meetings summary task along with the individuals underneath it, and then when we roll it up, and it'll take a moment to catch, there we go. And so at this point, we have meetings, and if we wanted to open that up and show the customer, we could do that. The customer could be outside the company. The customer could be somebody in the company. But we've got meetings, and if we wanted to, and as this, it would be obvious if you watch it here, we could apply some resources to it. So if we go assign resources, here's the project manager, and we could take and say, we also need to assign the mechanical engineer. It's going to be a little slow now while it catches up. This is so characteristic. Let's say they're the only ones who need to be in there. And so now we've got people assigned to it. And when we roll it up, they disappear, but when you open it up and you look at a specific meeting, you can tell who was there. And oh, by the way, which we're going to do later, you can report on these items. And so you could say, well, you want to see a report. Let me give you a report of all the project meetings. And then a report will roll this up for you as well. All right, so we'll just leave it at that. Now, there may come a point where Project Libre in the future has a method of doing recurring meetings. Microsoft Project has that today. Now, one of the reasons we aren't using Microsoft Project, it's a little expensive. And, you've learned to use one of these and you really could use them all. Now, if you asked me what I would use if I had my preference, I would use Microsoft Project because of the maturity of the software, the fact that it's probably be maintained a little bit more often than an open source software project is updated. And because it's more mature, it has more features to it. Now, we're going to talk next about tracking. So let's step back for a moment and talk about what we've been doing, and then let's talk about what we want to be able to do going into the future. So far, we have created a project, as small as it is, that we would consider to be a budget, okay? And it tells you what the tasks are, it tells you how long they're going to take, it tells you if they roll up under with other tasks into a summary, and you can apply resources to them as we have done, and as you can see with the names or the titles that are off to the side, and even in some cases how much time is allotted to a particular resource to do the job that task requires. Now, we're going to save this as a baseline, and so for the entire project we will save it. I clicked on the little menu item called Save Baseline, and when we click on it, it creates a baseline. So now when we start to do actual tracking of this, we will have an indication of where we are in the project for completed work, but we also can go back and look at it before we started to track it. So how do we track a project? Well, let's assume for this particular case that all 4 items under project plan development are done. So the easiest way to do it is to open up a task. So we're going to open up Define Scope. I double clicked on it. And you'll notice that it has a certain amount of work, and it has resources applied to it. We did that over here. So we applied the project manager. There's no predecessor, but there are successors. And the successor is the department team meeting that will take place. Now, going back to general, you'll notice there is a box that is called % complete. And if I put 100% in there, it doesn't like it because I put too many zeros in. Okay, so there we go. And I close this, and you'll notice there's a black bar in the middle now. So the one below it, there's nothing in there. The upper one, the first one, shows that there's a bar and it's completely across the task. That means it's completely done. So let's do the same thing with the next one. Give it a second to do what it's doing. And we'll do it to the third one. By the way, you notice it puts the 0, and that's why I got the 1000%, which it did not like. And it's because it automatically puts a 0 in. So when you start typing, it's doing it in 10% intervals. And then we'll say, because of the fact that the project is done, well, we're saying it's done, we will also 100% of the milestone. Now, notice that all 3 of the tasks have a bar through them. And just for fun, let's see what happens. And you'll notice that By default, project plan development, which is a summary task, is now 100% complete. Also notice the little tick marks off to the left showing that the project is complete. And you can see by hovering over one of those little green tick marks, it says the task was completed and when it was completed. So we have several indications of the fact that this project is done. Now, I want to take a quick peek at what the task information is showing. I've got to, not task information, excuse me. I want the information sheet from the file. So I went to File and then I clicked on Information. And notice that the update shows that we have when we started this project, when we created a baseline, the actual start of the project. By the way, that a baseline start, we're assuming we started on the date. So typically what would end up happening would be you would prepare this all in advance and then you would put a new start date. Let's say that you worked on the project plan in advance a little bit. And you might have started it on October 1st, this plan, but then you went ahead and did some additional work. You did additional work before you started the actual project. And that just gets absorbed into the normal operations of a company. And then you might have started on October 1st and this plan was done in a week. And then the project actually started on the 12th. So you'd have to make that adjustment. So you'll notice that our baseline, our actual start, because we just put in tasks that were complete, is already started. We actually started work. You wouldn't normally have had all that work at one time. It would have been spread out. So what probably would have happened is, in this particular case, the project started on the 12th of October. But as those lines show, we're saying that, hey, we got all the work done. Well, we didn't get it all done on one day. So you'd have to change the actual date that the work was actually done to get that correct. However, notice that we have a total amount of work. We have baseline work of 927. And notice that we already have some actual work that has been done, and it tells us how much is left to go. It also shows, and we already talked about this, you got a bunch of high-priced people all in a big meeting during the planning stage, and that cost us $9,500 to do, and it tells us how much of the budget, which is the baseline, that remains. Now, when you first do these, when you put the project plan together, you don't really pay that much attention to all this stuff. You're just worried about, do you have everything planned? Are all the tasks that are necessary in the project? Did you miss any tasks? We don't want to miss tasks if we can avoid it. We had to fix a few tasks that were I had this happen one time. The electronics team went off and put their budget together. And the guy who was their head guy, their team lead, he was one that was extremely conservative. And that's okay, except he loved to beef the numbers up. So he comes in with this extremely high cost for doing the project. The project manager took one look at it and said, "You're out of your mind. It's not going to take, if you think it's going to take that much, then I'll find somebody else to do your job," is what he basically said. And so they had to go back and clean it up. Well, again, once that budget is in place, then you have to track what's going on. Now, let me talk about that for a moment. In the project management world, you will typically hear the term earned value. Now, this goes along with something called project cost management, which is a part of the Belhaven program when you get into project management as a concentration. The purpose of earned value is to it actually has multiple impacts on a project. First, so we already did this. We said the department team meeting, this one right here, the department team meeting took place over 5 days with various engineers working on the project, and it took place over 5 days. And we had some people were only working part-time, but others were working full-time over that 5-day period to get the project plan put in place. Now, let's assume that they got it done in less than 5 days. They got it done in 4 days. They worked 8 hours, but they were efficient. And maybe we overestimated how long it was going to take to do that task, or they were extremely efficient. Whatever, it doesn't make any difference why, but they got it done in 4 days. Now, earned value basically says you just basically saved the project money. You earned some value by being done either on time or it took you less time to do. Now, in most projects, it often is that they end right on time. The budgeting was good. You really take time to do the budget correctly. And the project ends up being done on time, on time, on time. Not always, but there are a lot of things that can be done and you stay within the budget. So you've earned the value of the tasks that have been done. That earned value may be that you were right on the money. You 100%, it took you exactly 5 days. Maybe you saved some money by getting it done a little earlier, or worst case scenario, took longer than you thought. Now, the idea behind project management is to try to keep a project in scope, on schedule. And you've read this, the material that you've been reading for the courseware, for the course, the book, textbook, talks about all this. This is where the rubber meets the road. This is where things start coming together and you can see, okay, did we, and I will say, working on many projects over the years, did we get the budget right is one thing that you tend to be looking at very carefully. You're going, oh boy, I hope we got this right. So anyway, sometimes it goes over. Now, earned value still applies here, but the problem is you are either costing more to do the project or you're chewing up, if you will, some of the reserve that gets left over. So again, if the department team meeting took 4 days, but the project coordination took a full 2 days to do instead of the 1.6 days, or about 1.5 we had intended for it to take, we could apply, from the standpoint of dollar reserve, you could apply some of that toward the overage for project coordination. Now, it all flows together. So in the end, is the project at the moment where the project is at. So at this particular moment, and we're talking about this milestone right here, we're talking about project launch. If we are on schedule and everything comes together on that date as it should, then if all the dollars even out, we're on budget. If we didn't get, let's say it took the project coordination a little longer, and it actually took the department team meeting, maybe let's say it took 7 days instead of 5 days, we've lost some money on that particular project task. In other words, it ended up costing more than we thought. Plus, it will it will push the project off to the right. So engineering design phase cannot begin until project plan development is done. And so not only did it cost us more money-wise, but it also pushed the project out longer, which could have a deeper impact somewhere else down the road. Now, with all that said, and we've talked about those issues, let's take a look at what happens if you're only part way through. So let's say we're 50% complete. So I'm going to go ahead and make both mechanical design and I'm going to make electrical design 50% complete. And you'll notice that the lines are only part way through the task. So there, and by the way, notice that there's no green tick mark out here. There's no green check mark like there is back up here. These are done, check marked. These are in process or in progress, not done yet. And so because of that, whoa, we still have work to do, and it doesn't give us an indication that we are done. There's no special tick mark that says it's partially done. This over here, where you're looking at the bars, the black bars inside the, and by the way, if you go over top of it, okay, so you know what, Microsoft Project allows you, when you go over top of it, it will allow you to see, a little pop-up will come up, and it'll show you where in the percentage progress you are. Now, let's say you want to have the ability to tell exactly what the percentage is, and so we can change the annotation styles. Oh, they're there. Okay, milestones, normal tasks. Okay. And it doesn't give you, so I could tell you that in some of the tools, such as Microsoft Project, you can add to the bar style, you can assign additional items that will show up around the bar. And it doesn't do that in Project Libre. So you can see that the Project Libre is a good tool, but there's some, depending on how complex the coverage of a project needs to be, Microsoft Project could be your choice, because it does allow you to see things that you don't normally see inside Project Libre, such as you can add elements inside those bars, the red or blue bars. You can add them to the right, left, and so on. And that allows you to have some additional information that shows up on the Gantt chart. And the reason that can be important, I did this on a project we had that I was working for a defense contractor, and the project was an unusual project. It was a piece of equipment that had never been developed before, so it was a research project, and it was running behind. And management was concerned. They said, "Is there any way we can encourage everyone?" They don't know what everybody's doing. They know about their part, but they don't fully understand where's the electrical group, where's the electronics group, where's the mechanical group, where's the laser, the optics group. Where are they in their part of the project? So what we did was we had a huge plotter. It was a big machine. It did very nice big charts on big paper. And we made these very small, these Gantt charts, which gave us either a portion of the project or in some cases the whole project. And it had all the tasks, and it had the lines going out, and it had who was responsible for the different resources that were applied to a given project. And what we told everybody was, when you finish a task and you have shown that you are done, we will allow you to put a green marker through your task to show that you're done. Now, it seems almost like kindergarten. It's a little childish, right? You get a gold star if you're finished. Don't laugh. It sparked the project, because what was happening was the engineers and the various people that were working on the project that were in different groups, they were going to that chart and seeing that some of their compadres over in a different group were doing pretty well. So they upped their game. Now, of course, obviously you still want to have quality, not lose quality. But when they were maybe being a little lax in what they were supposed to do, lo and behold, they found that, oh, let's get some stuff done because we want to see some green up here because everybody else is moving ahead of us. And it helped generate excitement in every single group, except for one. We won't talk about that one. And it was the software group. We had to do some special things there. But everybody else started to get their act. It was like, wow, let's get this done. Let's get some, hey, let's spend some extra time getting this finished up. And then we can put a green stripe through our task. And it really did help move the project along. And as the big chart got all messed up with people marking the thing up, we would print a new one with the correct colors in, and then everybody was like, ooh, look at that, we got all ours done and we're moving on here, and so they aren't getting theirs done yet. And so it turned into quite the little challenge, if you will. But that's what you can sometimes do, and that's why these things can be very helpful. Now, we've looked at the actuals and how you apply them. So again, if we wanted to say manufacturing is only partially done, if you double click on it, and let's say that they've got 25% of their work done, and you put in 25% for completion, close, and now once the system catches up with me, you can see that they're partially complete. And you say, yeah, but that line looks longer than 25%. Well, that brings up something we're going to cover in the next session along with reporting, and that is a calendar. So remember, right now, it's jumping across a weekend. That bar jumps across a weekend, even though no work is being done, and you can tell that because of the grayed out area. We'll talk about calendar usage. So if you go back to the Gantt chart, we're looking at the Gantt chart, excuse me. If we look at tasks, there's something called a calendar, and we're going to look at that next time. And then we'll also talk about reporting. So there you go, actuals and a little bit about the tool itself, the differences between Project Libre and Microsoft Project, and that it would include some other tools that are actually out there. There are several different tools that are available for doing projects.